Hi, Niki here, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my read reading to be read for October 2024. I have been taking a ton of steps to take control of my reading life again, and it shows in the quality of books that I've been reading this month and the number of books that I've been reading. Considerably fewer than before. It's no longer about cramming in as many books as possible. It's about really basking with and enjoying the ones that I'm currently reading and maybe focusing a bit on wrapping up series that I've already started. But ironically, the first one I read this month was a buddy read with my patrons starting a new series. Technically not a series if you count the second book that came out, which is a prequel as a standalone. I tend to think if it's a package deal and if there's more that I need to read by the author, then it's a series, but whatever. Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I'd heard rave reviews about this book and then like the occasional cautionary tales, right? So I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. And like the writing is good, the characters are fun, it's passable. It just lacked that bit of depth, right? It all seemed a little too simple, straightforward. It kind of felt like YA plus. Like a lot of the things that I enjoy about YA books was present in here. I'm not saying it's a YA book, but it had a lot of the similar like writing styles and elements and stuff. And don't be fooled. There's a dragon on the cover and there are dragons in the story, but this is not a dragon book. This is a political intrigue book with just a splice of dragons, and not even very good dragons in my opinion. Like, where were they the whole book? Like, I thought the whole plot kind of revolved around the danger of this impending dragon returning. Where were the dragons? You would think they would have skin in the game, if you will. The further along I got in the book, the more dissatisfied I became with it. I was halfway through it, I was thinking it was going to be a 4-star read, but I think I talked myself down to a 2.5 out of 5 stars by the time I got to the end of it. It was better than just okay, but I'm not sure that I actually liked it. I kind of feel like I wasted half a month on this chonker. Will I read more? I don't know. I have the prequel book as mentioned, A Day of Fallen Night. I know what it's about. I don't know if I'll ever get around to reading it. But then I bought the first 2 of the Bone season, the Nice Broken Binding editions, and I have to decide pretty quickly on whether or not I'm going to continue reading from her and actually buy the second half of that set. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards no based on how disappointed I was in this one. But like I said, not a bad book. Maybe I'm just grouchy. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it went anywhere. Ashes of Man by Christopher Rocchio, book 5 in the Sun Eater series. This is on par with the previous 2 books that I read. Books 1 and 2 kind of knocked my socks off, and then from there it's just been a passably enjoyable science fiction. My favorite thing about it is kind of the unknown. I don't know where it's going, and I love that about this series. But overall, I haven't read anything since that second book that felt super revolutionary or I have to talk about this series online. So for me, the series is kind of plateauing, if you will. Hit a really high, and then it came down a little bit, and it's just been kind of consistently good. Which, if this didn't have a lot of booktube hype, I would probably be talking about it a little differently. I'd be like, yeah, I'm enjoying the series pretty well. This one was a little talky for my taste, kind of dealing with the fallout of the previous book, but overall, this is a really fun series, and I'm liking the characters and whatnot. So let's go with that. That sounds a little more positive, but I feel like I have to qualify, I am not as excited about this as many of the booktubers that I've seen who have read to this point, but I'm still highly enjoying myself. So if there wasn't any of that booktube hype baggage, I would sound a little different. I think I'm landing at a 4 out of 5 stars for this one. I've been reading the Animorph series, and I haven't been talking about it much. It's a reread. When I was a kid, I lived in the sticks. I had the Animorph books, and I reread them things. During summer days, 3 books a day. I would do this random rotation and just read the whole series over and over and over again. And that's about when book 22, 23 was out, nothing really beyond that. So those first several books I have read dozens and dozens of times. And then it occurred to me that that's about the time that I moved. That's about the time that I got a job as a bookseller, and suddenly I went from scarcity of reading materials to abundance. And I have only read beyond the 24th book once. So the series that I'm absolutely beloved series, I've read so many times, I actually have not read the end half of it. Like, that's a full half of the series. It goes up to book 52, and that doesn't even count like the special editions or whatever. So I think it bears talking about. Like, I feel like I don't even know what happens beyond this point. This is like where the wall hits, where I have a vague memory of one or two scenes going forward, but I don't really know where the story goes. I remember how it ends because that was kind of a impactful moment for me, but I don't remember how we get there. I'm very excited. I've been reading like one or two a month, basically whenever the holds come in at the library, because I've been doing audio editions this time around, and I've been thoroughly enjoying my experience with it. I think these are accessible for adults. Like, you know, if you have kind of like understanding that they're written for a middle grade audience, but especially the further along you get in the series, they deal with some heavy issues. And they do it in an intelligent way that's accessible to kids, but at the same time, it gives you like good food for thought, especially this most like series capping trilogy that I'm on right now. It's like a set of 3 books that kind of marks the end of when K.A. Applegate switched to having ghostwriters and was kind of just like the creative director. Anyway, long story short, I've been reading those and highly enjoying them. They were the books that got me interested in reading when I was a kid. So yeah, take any praise with a grain of salt because I love them so much. I read part of and then quickly put down Hyper Focus by Chris Bailey. Like, this is the second book I've read from this author, and he strikes me like someone like me who just loves new productivity systems, but I think he lacks the writing ability to convey those ideas in a way that feels revolutionary, because like there was nothing concise about the writing, and I always come away from listening to his books feeling very unsatisfied. Like I'm going in there for a specific hit, some sort of productivity insight, some good facts that are gonna like make me think for a while and change how I do things. That's what I get out of most nonfiction books that I pick up. And just like, we're just not on the same brainwave. I do not care for this author, I think. So I put it down because I wasn't getting anything out of it, and I had already listened to like half the book. So that was a bust, but what can you do, you know? Currently reading Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, this massive chonker. I love this series so much. It's one of my all-time favorites. And you may have heard Wind and Truth is coming out in December, and I always do a Stormlight reread. That should tell you something, that with all my busy schedule and how much I am like adverse to rereading because it'll take away time from new books, that I am willing to drop everything and read 1,000-page books, sometimes 2 of them, for any new Stormlight release. I absolutely love this series, one of my favorites. And the cool thing is I feel like I've only been reading for a couple days. It's been longer than that, but I'm already 200 pages in. Look, this is what 200 pages in looks like. Very much enjoying my time with this. I'm on pace to be ready for the new one, but if I miss it by a week or 2, I'm okay. Like, I just need to avoid spoilers. Now let's talk about my TBR. I am very much committed this month to simplifying things, focusing on the best series first, wrapping things up that I've started. And I mean, to that end, my patrons and I are reading Speaking Bones by Ken Liu. I might have mentioned this last video because we had it scheduled in October, but we forgot about spooky season. So a couple of my patrons like haunted reads. So we moved this one to November, and it actually worked a lot better for my schedule because, you know, I'm in the middle of Rhythm of War. It's going to take me a while. But I've spoken enough about how much I love this series. I am very much looking forward to seeing how it ends. No surprise here, Disquiet Gods. I've been doing this one on audio. This one, my library, I'm like 7th in line, but there's only 1 copy, so it means like months. I'm going to be waiting months for this thing if I don't get lucky. So I may break down and actually spend an audio credit, which I'm glad I just reminded myself. I always forget to do an audiobook update, which I will do at the end of the video. But Disquiet Gods, book 6, this will put me up to date in the Rockio series. But before I read this one, I need to read Dregs of Empire. This one I have ready to go in the queue. It's 9 hours long. And I read a couple of the short stories early on and then decided to skip them for the sake of momentum going forward, especially since some of the reviews for them were like, meh, take them or leave them. This one was official enough that my library has a copy. It's got an audiobook and a narrator, whatever. So I'm going to be reading that one first before I continue on with Disquiet Gods, and hopefully by the end of next month I'll have read both. And then A Practical Guide to Conquering the World by KJ Parker. This one is scheduled for a buddy read with patrons at the middle of November. So very excited for this one. These are quick reads. These are so much fun. Abercrombie-esque. If you love Abercrombie, this would be a really good one to pick up in the meantime. These have just slightly more levity. Yeah, I mean, nobody's on the same pedestal as Abercrombie, but points in this series have hit the same highs for me. Especially Abercrombie's first trilogy, because, like, we all love Glocta, but I swear, like, the moments in that series were actually kind of few and far between on the things that we all remember the most about it, but they were just good enough that you were like, wow, the whole thing is amazing. Talking about that initial trilogy anyway. This one, the first book hit a really high note. The second one was just okay. And so we'll see how it ends in this one. But this is definitely not my last Parker if I have anything to say about it. So here's an update on my Audible 3-for-1 challenge. If you're following, I started this challenge with 285 books in my Audible library. And I set myself a challenge: for every 3 that I read, I can buy one. But limiting how many I buy, essentially. Like, none of those sales, which you'll be proud of me. I have not been checking out the sales. They'll pop up, I'll click on it just out of habit, and then I'll close the browser because I'm like, like, whatever I buy, I'm not going to have time to read right now anyway. It's just going to add to the list. Now, the thing is, like, I want this to work for me. I don't want to be putting things in there that I won't get to for years. But if a book comes up that I'm reasonably, like, really reasonably sure that I'm going to be reading soon, I will pick it up, right? So since my last check-in, I finished Sunlit Man, Priory, Ashes of Man, and then one purchase, Road of Storms by Anthony Ryan. Whenever he comes out with a new novella, I always do the ebook/audiobook combo, so it ends up being like $2 for the audiobook. So I did pick that up because I have on the docket, like, really high priority to reread that entire thing. Now, the thing is I'm still making up for some of the other, like, had to purchase because a buddy read was starting at purchases. So I've completed 2 and almost 3-for-1 challenges, but have purchased 4 books since the challenge started. So how the maths right now is that I would need to finish this 3-for-1 and do an additional one to do for the Anthony Ryan one. Cool, I'm okay with it because there's nothing excessive that I've picked up, but it's painfully slow getting through all of these titles. Like, it's amazing to me because, like, I have so many things I want to read out of here, but so I started with 285. Right now, the official number for this check-in, I am at 282. And I'm just saying, I'm probably going to have to purchase Disquiet Gods. I'm probably going to have to purchase Speaking Bones. But as long as I read them right away, I'm really okay with that. It's not about that. It's not about limiting my enjoyment of reading in general because of some arbitrary rule. It's about limiting the excessive stuff that I purchase. So that's my check-in. I want to know how your reading month is going. Picking up anything absolutely amazing lately? Thanks so much for following along with me. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.